Hello, BookTube. This is Alan, the Lonely Bookshelf. First, I'd like to thank you for the new subscribers. I thank you very much for doing that. And for your comments. Be sure to comment and like. Uh, I have a two book call. First of all, I like to have an explanation. Explanation might go longer than the two book call. When I was growing up, I was interested in classical music. Always have been. I don't know why, but that's where I went to. I listened to, the Beach Boys, the Beatles, the Carpenters, the Bee Gees, Elton John. I listened to that guy who said he saw fire and rain and sweet dreams and flying machines and pieces on the ground. But classical music is what I've always, uh, what's the word? Ventured to. I've always listened to it. And I've been to a couple of symphonies, I've been to operas, and I collected their LPs, later the CDs. I never collected any pop music or hard rock or metal bands records or CDs. Always classical. But there's one thing that was missing in my collection of classical music, and that is biographies. So I started a couple years ago building up my musical biography library. So I'll start off with this one. This is Rimsky Korsakov. This is his Letters to His Family and Friends by Tatiana Rimsky Korsakov. Rimsky Korsakov is famous for the Scheherazade. This was by Amadeus Press, and this one came out in 2016 as by a half price bookstore. So I haven't read this one yet, but I'm planning on getting to one of those things. This one I bought at the library book sale. It was 2019. I have read this one. You can tell by the the markers on it. This is George Friedrich Handel, A Life with Friends by Elaine T. Harris. This was put out by Norton, and this one came out, let's see, in 2014. Elaine T. Harris, the author, is a professor emeritus at MIT, serves in music facilities at Columbia University, University of Chicago. Previous books include Handel and Orpheus, Voice and Desire, and the Chamber Cantatas. She spoke at the Lincoln Center, appeared on PBS NewsHour and BBC Radio. So this list has an index, of course, notes, selected bibliography, yes, some of the, and some of the works, selections, currency, living fees, costs, and wages. And Handel was actually one of the more richest composers that lived. And she goes, this biography goes through, because one in the biography, Handel had enough money to invest in stocks. He invested in the stock market. So, those of you who don't know, George Friedrich Handel, and we're coming up to Christmas time where they always play Messiah all the time. So, yeah, 1685 until his death in 1759. So, for a good introduction to Handel, this is really good. This is really good to buy. I really enjoyed reading this. And this talks about his people that George Friedrich Handel met, and other century writers on Handel. So yeah, this is a good one to pick up. The next one was I think this was also a library copy. I'm not sure where I got this one, but this one is Mozart It might be at Half Price Bookstore. This is by Maynard Solomon, and this is printed by HarperCollins, and it was copyrighted in 1995. There's a lot of this is a big book. It goes on for about 519 pages. I think there's a lot of insights into scores, Don Giovanni, some photographs, early portrait of Mozart, his fearful symmetries, his illustrations, a lot of illustrations in here that are covered in here. So basically it is a used biography. Maynard Solomon, read something about the author. Maynard Solomon is the author of 4 books on Beethoven, including a classic biography, Beethoven, has been translated into 7 languages. He has written about Mozart, Schubert, and Ives. That's Charles Ives, another classical composer. His work is acclaimed by musical lovers and scholars alike. He lives in New York, taught at Columbia and Harvard University, and the visiting professor of music at Yale University. Read you a little bit about this from the inside flap. The music of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, a civilization sign for the constellation of beauty. But he himself was beset by sadness and loss. At a tender age, he became the family provider, the source of his status and economic well-being, but to justify his exploits as a child prodigy, he was burdened with the charge that he was incapable of caring for himself. What Maynard Solomon calls the myth of the eternal child was used to keep him in subjection to his family's interests, until at last his need to be a separate individual triggered his flight from Salzburg to Vienna in 1781, inaugurating a decade of supreme masterworks, but resulting in his alienation from his father's sister in the hometown. So yeah, this is what the front cover looks like without this dust jacket on it, which I think is very nice. Yeah, so this one is Mozart biography that I haven't read yet. When this was like $35 when it first came out. The next one I purchased last year during the 250th anniversary of Beethoven's birth. They had a lot of things planned for Beethoven, celebration of Beethoven, but of course, the pandemic put an end to all that. And this is the University of California Press, Beethoven, A Life by Jan Caeyers. And I like this cover on there. The cover art is very nice. This one, of course, came out in 2000. And John Ayres, the conductor and musicologist, one of your prominent experts on Beethoven, music director of the Beethoven Orchestra, the Concert Olympique? No, it's wrong. And a member of the Department of Musicology. And of course, I said this one came out last year. It has a lot of photographs of Beethoven, talking about his life, and a lot of illustrations throughout the book. Beethoven, some of the scores. And in the back, you have some of the very difficult decision. There was one book that was published last year about Beethoven. That was put. I don't know the title of the book, but someone posted it on Instagram, and I saw it. It was kind of funny. it said that one of the sentences in the book read, Beethoven, even though he was dead, that didn't stop him from continuing to compose some of his very major works. So this one, that's not here, hopefully not. So yeah, Beethoven Alive. This one, like I said, came out last year. And read you a little bit here. International best-selling biography of Ludwig van Beethoven, now translated to English the first time, offers connoisseurs and newcomers alike unparalleled story of the composer's life and works. With unprecedented access to the archives, Beethoven's house in Bonn, renowned Beethoven conductor and scholar Jean Caeyers expertly weaves together deeply human and complex image of Beethoven. Troubled youth, his unpredictable mood swings, his desires, relationships, and conflicts with family and friends, and the mystery surrounding his affair with the immortal beloved, of which the movie was made, called The Immortal Beloved. And so, yeah, so I'm looking forward to reading. I will get to these next year. That's my plan, to read more biographies. This year I only read one biography. Now let's get on to the two that I purchased recently came in. The first one is Shostakovich, A Life, and this is by Laurel. This was printed by Oxford Press, and it came out in 2000. There's a lot of biographies of Shostakovich, and there's a portrait of him when he was younger. This is not the definitive biography of Shostakovich. There have been others. I have another one on my shelf up here. It's not really a biography. It's more of a, let me turn around, excuse me. See it? It's basically, yeah, a symphony for the City of the Dead is when he wrote his symphony about Leningrad. Let's see if I can find the correct title for that symphony, because he's written several of them. Back here you have a list of works, dramatic works, symphonies. He has written a lot. Operas, ballets, film scores. He's written a lot of film scores, orchestral. He's written a lot of symphonies. He wrote 15 symphonies and several violin concertos, and which you don't be hearing any of it in the orchestra repertoire. You do hear some of his symphonies, though. A lot of these were done. I've only heard a couple of these. The Fifth Symphony I've heard is 6. Oh, here it is. The Dedication to the City of Leningrad, Symphony Number 7. So that was that one, that book over there on the shelf. Symphony for the City of the Dead. He's written several choral works, several suites, vocal, chamber, piano. So yeah, he's very busy, very, very, very busy man. And so Dmitri Shostakovich, one of my favorite composers, I would have to say. So this would be a good book for anybody with a lot of bibliography in here section. This would be good for just anybody wanting to study about Shostakovich. And like I said, it doesn't go into detail a lot. Excuse me. It doesn't go into a lot of detail. It's not the Dmitri Shostakovich group says it's not that great, but for someone that wants to know about him, You can pick it up. It's in them. So it says, for this authoritative post-Cold War biography of Shostakovich's illustrious but turbulent career under Soviet rule, Laurel has gone back to primary documents. Shostakovich, excuse me, many letters, concert programs and reviews, newspaper articles, and diaries of the contemporary. Shostakovich's life is a fascinating example of the paradoxes of living as an artist under totalitarian rule. He survived successive Stalinist culture purges and won the Stalin Prize 5 times. Yet in 1948, he was dismissed from his teaching positions, and many of his works were banned. Excuse me. So, let me get a drink here. So, Laurel is widely published writer on Russian and Soviet music, traveling and studying Russian since 1971. Did I ever mention this when this book came out? I think I did. 2000. The last book in this 2-book book haul, which you probably just saw, 5 books, is this one, Anthony Holden's Tchaikovsky biography. This one I saw at Borders bookstore when it first came out, but I didn't purchase it. It came out in 1995, but I didn't purchase it. I just looked through it, and I should have purchased it then instead of waiting to just buy it used, but it's okay. It's a little lines there, and otherwise it's in pretty good condition. You know, the pages are good, they're not marred or anything. Some on the frontage page here, but this shows the life of Tchaikovsky. As we come into Christmas time, you'll hear the more and more of the Nutcracker Suite, which Tchaikovsky wrote, which I hate. And the reason I hate it is because where I lived back in 2019, when they showed when the Christmas time came around, and they had the Nutcracker Suite, they had 63 performances of the Nutcracker. 63. It's even a Christian version of the Nutcracker. You could still tell it was a Nutcracker, even if there was a Christian version. This is the photos. This is his family right here. He actually had like 4 brothers, I believe. Yeah, he had 4 brothers. He had Nikolai, Anton. He had a brother named Increased, which reminds you of the, oh, here it is, 5 brothers. Photo of his 5 brothers right here. And Anatoly, Nikolai, Impalat, Mitor, and Modest. So, yeah, he had a brother named Increased. And, so it has a lot of photos in here. He visited America in 1891. And there's a lot of works back here. List of works, recommended recordings, which the other books don't have. I have several of his works by the Berlin Philharmonic conductor at the time, Herbert von Karajan. And let me read you the part here. Now, and this is a lot of information about Tchaikovsky that a lot of people don't know. The life of Tchaikovsky is surrounded by myths more than a century, thanks to the subterfuge by his family with his blessing of Soviet authorities. The world was given a false portrait of a man whose hidden life was in fact as poignant as much as his music. Because when Tchaikovsky married his wife, they actually separated a month later. Best known for his first piano concertos, music for ballet Swan Lake, the opera Queen's Page. Tchaikovsky wrote passion songs, haunted chamber music, and lyrical orchestra scores. In fact, his piano, they host a piano competition in St. Petersburg. I think it's every 3 years or every 4 years. Tchaikovsky piano competition, in which Van Cliburn, a pianist from Fort Worth, about 30 miles from where I live, won it during the Cold War. After years and also, let me make an interruption here, excuse me, his violin concerto is one of the hardest uh, violin concertos for a violinist to play. After years of neglect, during which he was written off as too popular, he is now hailed as one of the greatest melodies in orchestra, melodists and orchestras, with the opening of archives in post-Soviet Russia as his mysterious death. Because in 1893, a week after conducting the first performance of his Pathetic Symphony, he was dead at the age of 53. When he had drunk a glass of on-board water, knowing that there was cholera epidemic in St. Petersburg. And could this story have been covered up for since the truth, suicide, or even murder? The enigma of Tchaikovsky's death provides a atonement of this absorbing new biography by Anthony Holden. Sees the death as a logical climax of composer's tortured life as a promiscuous homosexual. So that's Tchaikovsky, a biography. So I thank you for joining me on this musical journey, and take care.